This is the 18th season of Bass Talk Live. With your host, Matt Pangrack. BTL is brought to you by Lowrance, Bass Cat Boats, AFCO, Strike King Lures, Sunline, Big Bite Baits, Spro, X-Zone Lures, Gamakatsu, The Bass Tank, Denali Rods, and Pro Guide Batteries.
PTL, coming at you!
Good morning and welcome to another exciting edition of BTL Bass Talk Live, where we are going to talk bass fishing and 2023 Bassmaster Elite Series qualifications. We have two of them in the house. Sitting to my right, the Central Opens points champion, none other than Bradley Hallman. Bradley, thanks for taking time to come into the studio.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me in.
We also have a overall qualifier in the 2023 Bassmaster Elite Series, and that would be none other than the man, John Soukup, live from his new Bass Tank headquarters. It's up around Tulsa is what I always say, but it's like a new deal. That's why all the trophies and stuff aren't in the background yet. But John has a event next week, was home for like 4 days after he qualified, so he is he's remote. But John, thank you for jumping on BTO.
Excited. Should be a good conversation.
Today we're going to get into a lot of stuff. We're going to go through, obviously, the initial impact of Bradley requalifying for the Elite Series. Third year trying to requalify after you left the FLW Tour. You went Elite Series, a couple years off, FLW Tour, then 3 years of the Opens, back on the Elite Series. John, you went 1 year of MPFL, and then you just ran the gauntlet in your first year of the Bassmaster Opens, qualified in the overall at the last event at Sam Rayburn. So we're going to get each of your takes on the overall season, some of the highs, some of the lows, some of the themes that you guys had throughout the year, and then I really want to get into the pressure of that last event at Rayburn to get the job done to qualify for the 2023 Elite Series season. So, Bradley, you've been doing this longer than John and I have combined. So we'll go to the seniority there. What does it feel like to wake up now 3 days knowing that your next competition cast will be on the Bassmaster Elite Series?
I don't know. It's been such an uphill climb for all of us. We're all in the same house. We room together. We share information. We travel together. We're like one big family, right? The three of us plus Andrew. And to have two of us in one house is really special. And I would like to have all four. I would. And I know you guys are going to keep coming and you'll get it done next year. But, dude, it's been really nice. I know that every morning I wake up, it feels good to have accomplished that goal.
John, same question to you. What does it feel like the last 3 mornings waking up knowing, dude, I'm on the Bassmaster Elite Series?
Man, I guess this is the non-fun side about me. All I've been thinking about is work. What I got to do to get prepared, what I got to do. I feel like the work's just begun. I do feel like a monster monkey is off my back. Don't get me wrong, but
I'd be called a gorilla, John.
Well, I'm the
That's
gorilla.
A monster.
I'm the gorilla. Yeah, I had a gorilla, monkey, whatever. It's off my back, but now I see what's ahead, and I just see a bunch of work. I'm excited. Don't get me wrong. I love to catch a fish, but I just got that that determination right in front of me right now.
It was interesting. It's the weigh-in. We were all kind of in the late flights at Sam Rayburn, and out of necessity, I was sticking around to pick up my check, but I also wanted to make sure, see if you guys were in. Andrew had to get home, take care of the kid. But I was sitting there watching, and I remember you said something, and I feel like, Bradley, you've been there. You've done that. It was more of a relief for you. But, John, you actually said, it was kind of cool. We all had to take Brad's boat afterwards back to load it because he put it at a different launch ramp, and you kind of shook your head. And I've never seen you I guess, kind of reflective like that. You're always go, 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 accomplish, 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 intense. And you're like, man, this is surreal. You're like, it's over. It's surreal. Like, has it sunk in yet, or do you still have that kind of surreal feeling about it?
It's a little numb. There's a little surreal feeling. I don't know how to explain it, guys. And I will tell you, that little boat ride that we had back, that moment that Hank came down to tell Bradley first that he was fully confirmed, and he had to follow the rules and that kind of warning there. We're standing next to each other. We're about to take a ride in the boat in the dark, right? It's like 9 o'clock at this point, or 8:30 or whatever, pitch black dark. And then all of a sudden, those Elon Musk lights came through that I've never seen before
so
in my
cool.
life.
Yeah,
that's just going to be one of those fishing moments that I don't think I'll ever forget, guys. It's a moment that you got, all three of us, and we'll be able to share together. And like you said, that boat ride back was probably the most peaceful boat ride. 5-minute jog to the other ramp that I've definitely had all year. So
I did not know that existed, and it is. So here's how it went down. So like Brad came in and they're doing all the points. Well, explain what all.
Well, we
what
had
all
waited.
happened
We
after
had
Brad.
waited, so they had the top 10 meeting. We had to wait till everything was over and finalized because, man, the points, believe it or not, even down to the end of day 2, like it was very complicated, and a lot of people waited. But the only one that it was obvious for was me, that I was in. They couldn't confirm John. They couldn't confirm. There was a guy in Niggemeyer was in the top 3, but 2 of the guys that were also potentially going to be in the top 3 were in the top 10 days. So depending on where they ended up, Niggemeyer could be out or could be in. So they couldn't confirm anything. I was the only one that was confirmed. And then we're standing around in the dark and to find all this out. And then I had not even loaded my boat because I waited in the last
It was
flight.
just beached.
It's just beached. And everybody's like, what are we going to do? Well, we've been cooking at the house every night, and or Alton had been cooking for us at the house every night. But anyway, we hadn't been out. And I was like, guys, let's go to the stump. We're right here. Your truck was already there at the pavilion. Your truck and boat was at the pavilion. And I hadn't even loaded mine yet, and I'd put in over at Twin Dykes. So we all just got to take a nice ride. But that satellite, what is that?
That is the Elon Musk SpaceX Starlink satellite.
It is the future.
And it's like,
It looked like we were in the
It was
future.
like a string. It looked like Santa's sleigh, except it was like about 200 lights, and it was just literally like kind of traveling across the night sky at Rayburn. And there's not a lot out there in East Texas anyway, so there was not a lot of light pollution out there, and it just was a just beaming as it went across the sky.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm like sitting in the middle on the little chair next to you, and you guys on either side, both the Elite Series qualifiers, and kind of having seen how it went down throughout the whole year and the stress and pressure that both of you were under. Because, I mean, let's face it, like Andrew and I, we felt stress and we felt pressure, but it was a different kind. You know, we were out of it for the points. There was no way we could win one to make the Bassmaster Classic. But in the overall points, this is something that and I know, John, you felt it really early because you got out of the gates really hot and were leading the overall points for a majority of the season. But it was just crazy how you could feel the pressure every evening and after every day of practice and the competition. Like, John, you were acutely aware of what you were fishing for and the pressure that you were under as the season progressed. And I don't want to say it got uncomfortable, but there was a palpable sense of pressure kind of around you and around your boat every day as you got closer and closer. Could you feel it? Did you know it was there?
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen, I haven't had very much success in life unless I was mad. So sometimes you just got to get mad. I got mad earlier this year, and I stayed mad. It didn't help me. I had some mistakes this year that we can talk about later, but I definitely had to go into a zone to make sure that this thing happened at the end of the year, And I had to make some phone calls on the drive back, and I still owe some people some apologies for cutting, I don't have much conversation piece. Like, it was focused on catching a bass. That was it.
Listen, you don't know anybody in pot. I mean, I did the BTL for 15 years with Mark Jeffrey, so I know thriving on anger. I know all about that. Brad, you seemed a little bit more mellow than John throughout the year. Do you think that's just a matter of experience and kind of been in those situations?
No,
before?
I think it's a difference in our personalities. I would like to have a lot of what John has. I've told him that before. I've stayed with some of the greatest anglers in the world at some point, in 3 or 4 or 5 of them throughout my career. Shared houses with them, roommated with them. And John is wired the same way they are, the exact same. You know, he pushes. He's always trying hard. What night was it? What night was it he came in and, like, it was a practice night?
Tuesday.
So he comes in on Tuesday, and he's just furious because he's not getting the results out there on the water that he wants. And the guy sits out there and works on tackle until literally 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, something like that. It was late. And I'd gone out and checked on him, and it was late. And I was already in bed and had gotten back up because John was still out there with the lights on. And that kind of drive is different. And I only see that in, like, the best of the best, you know, that I've stayed with, you know, the Brian Schmitz, the Jason Christies, the Scott Martins.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the guys that work and have that fire that he has.
Okay, I want to kind of piggyback off that, and we'll go into the final event and how it went down for Rayburn for you, John, and then we'll go to Brad because you were both in a little bit different scenarios. John, you had a little bit of a cushion. You're a math guy. Throughout the year, you were always doing the numbers, and you knew that you didn't have to, to take a phrase out of Bradley's, you knew you didn't have to freak show him to make the elite, but you also couldn't stumble because you had some guys coming behind you. But you're out there working on the tackle, and one of the things that you said that I thought was very interesting was, I'm taking everything out of the boat that is not in my wheelhouse and that I have not caught a bass on, and if I'm going to qualify for this, it's going to be my way, doing what I like to do confidence-wise. Talk a little bit about, guess, you got something? Talk a little bit about that strategy going into it, because I think Brad's was similar too, but I mean, you had 45 rods out there, and then all of a sudden you're out there and you're like, I'm getting rid of this, and you just started taking all sorts of stuff out of your boat, and I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the 3 or 4 events before Rayburn, I had good day ones, but day 2 I bombed, and I just felt like mentally I wasn't in the right place. I know I wasn't in the right place. I had a lot of negativity going on, and just a lot of doubt, I guess, or just, you know, we had to talk about all the things that you put on risk and all the time that you invest into it, the time away from your family and stuff like that to not catch a fish. And I needed to find, like, my peaceful place. I needed to Happy Gilmore this thing, you know what I mean, and find my happy place. And I knew how to catch fish, man. I'd heard reports of guys that weren't able to catch fish at Sam Rayburn. I could catch 50 fish a day if I wanted to, but they weren't the right size. And so that's what that was a lot of practice in figuring out how to get a bigger bite. And I really only found one way that was conducive to something I've done in the past, which was throw a spook. You know, I've qualified for the Force Woodcut throwing a spook. I've won a lot of tournaments throwing a spook, and it's a big fish bait. So that was one of my big fish baits that I was going to keep versus having like 5 other different kinds of baits, whether it was a swim bait or something else that I'd never actually proven in a tournament. So I stuck with my jerk bait setup where I could go in live scope and put a limit in the boat pretty easily, 10 to 12 pounds, and then, you know, get a bigger bite by switching. So that's what that was eliminate and getting the chaos out of my head. So that way during the tournament, when those thoughts come to your head, those negative thoughts that have kind of were attacking me in the last couple of events, I can fight them off and just stick with what I know to do and stick with what I know I have confidence in, what I've proven.
You ended up finishing 22nd in the event, 11-11 on the first day. You were actually bubble boy for a check in 40th place, and then backed that up with 13-13 on day 2, 25-8, finished in 22nd place and qualified in the number 6 spot in the overall by roughly 30 points over 7th. Because of double qualifiers, you were the 3rd qualifying position in the overall, so that's how you ended up on the Elite Series. On day 2, I actually saw you on the water probably around 1 or 2, and you seemed still very intense, but you did a lot of your damage on the put up or shut up day, I guess, which would be Friday. You seemed like you kind of went out and took care of business early on that day.
Yeah, well, what happened was, like I said, I hadn't been in a good mental place for a few events, guys, and I knew it, and I just really, I guess I was getting in that rut, you know, and I was really afraid I was giving this thing away. I had a 100-point lead for a long time on everybody. And then to come down to where I have to be fortunate enough that the double qualifiers allow me to qualify. I'm happy now, but man, it wasn't a good place to be in. And after day one's weigh-in, I thought I was going to need 15 pounds to be competitive, to stay where I needed to be to guarantee qualifying. And I limp in with 11:11. I'm really kind of disappointed. And then I look at the stats and realize I'm in 40th. I'm only a couple pounds out of like 15th. And the guys that needed to catch him didn't catch him, to bump me out.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, you're on Rayburn. Someone could Logan Matuso it, and I'm in trouble the next day.
Adjective.
But, yeah, day one, I didn't have a fish in the boat. At 11:30, I had one fish in the boat, one tiny one. I'm running all my brush piles, all my stuff, and it's just not working for me. It's not connecting. I'm sure guys are catching them. And about noon, I catch my second keeper, and I've already ran from one side of the lake all the way up to the other, and I'm just jumping holes trying to find active fish. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to go out and do what I know how to do to just catch a limit. And when I did go to my limit hole areas, I jumped 2 or 3 of them, and they weren't even acting right. When I finally came on one that was, I actually, first fish was a 5-pounder. I lost it. And then I lost a 3.5-pounder. And a lot of people would go really negative at that point. But what was exciting for me was that I'd never seen fish like that in practice doing what I was doing. So then I realized real quick that I had an opportunity to actually catch a big bag, not just a limit bag, but catch a big bag. So I caught a 3.5, and this all happens within 15 minutes of time. So I ended up catching all my keepers there. The big fish kind of disappeared, and I went back to chasing some bank stuff with the spook. And that was that 11:11. Well, when I came in, like I said, on day one, I realized how close I was. The piece came, man. I knew that I could go out and do that on day two. And those guys are going to really have to catch them behind me to catch up to me. So day two fishing, I didn't have the pressure that I feel like Bradley had. My pressure was on me on day one. Day two, I really had a pretty good peace of mind. So I went out from the beginning of the day to the end and caught fish. So.
Fantastic. All right, Bradley, you were in a little bit different scenario. You go into the points. You had Nick. Okay, who was around you? You had Nick LeBrun, tied with Nick LeBrun, who is absolutely on fire. You had James Niggemeyer from Texas, who is an absolute stud on the water. You had a number of anglers, so you were out. You were out of the Elite Series, right?
Going into
it, you were like 6 or 7 points out.
Yeah, I think it was 9 points out, actually.
Right,
9 points.
And you dedicated a lot of time to practice. But what was your mindset going into Thursday's first day of competition?
Mindset of Thursday,
like Wednesday night.
I had spent some time down there. So when we got done with the Red River, right, and finished up there, Castledine, who's one of my lifelong best friends, called me and said, "Bubba, you got to get through this year, and you're here." He's like, "I'm fishing the tournament, so like I don't know how much I can help you, but I can help you with the grass stuff. So like you need to come down here before we come back to practice." So I went down and we spent a day together on the water. We went to the other arm of the lake that usually neither he nor I fish at all. And we kind of did that so that, we could fish freely, and talk about his hybrid hunter and, what he likes and what he looks for. And we had a decent day. It wasn't great, but it's how I like to fish. It's visual stuff. You could see it with your eyes. It's shallow. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Your wheelhouse.
Yeah. And so I kind of bought into that in practice, and I stayed with it. And it was not good. You know what I mean? Like, it was never spectacular, but I could get some bites. And I had seen a couple of glimpses of decent fish, not giant fish, just decent fish. And I was betting on the fact of the recent tournament results from the things that had gone on down there. They looked very much like day one and day two looked. Even with Latuso, they look like that. You've got one guy that freak shows it out of a brush pile. They pull up and they catch them all in one spot. And then they never catch them again out of there, ever. So do I want to go look for that needle in a haystack in 220,000 acre lake of brush piles, or do I want to bet on what I do every day? So that's what I did. And I just went to the bank, and I felt confident that I could catch some fish. I actually had them going in 2 different areas of the lake, 2 different sides of the lake. I wanted to go to the weaker side day 1 first. It was my short day. It was closer to takeoff and maximize my time, and it worked out. I mean, I just stayed on the bank and just kept grinding and grinding and grinding.
15-7 on day 1 put you in 10th place, and afterwards, they ran the numbers, and it's like, holy cow, Brad, you're leading the points by like 10 or 15 places. But you came in, and I have not seen you that jacked up in a long time, and it will be out on your YouTube channel.
100%.
But it's crazy. You talk to everybody and they're like, dude, there's a fish, there's a moment, there's something that happened that always sticks with them through their career, whether it's a Skeet Reese moment, or even go a Boyd Duckett with the classic fish moment on that. You look at like a Porosnik on Toledo Bend with the bed, like that crazy something happens. And you had one of those freak show crazy moments on day 1 that really pushed you over the edge, didn't you?
So going into the event, I knew for a fact that the grass bite was not just going to put me over the top. Like, I could get some bites, but I had not seen anything much over 3.5 pounds, and that was a big one for me. So I knew that I was going to have to take some risks. I actually talked with John about this during the event as we went on. I had to take some risks, and I had a few bites on topwater on a spook that were definitely different fish than the grass fish were, meaning they were bigger. But it was very inconsistent and very hard to get that bite. But dude, I knew I had to take some risks. I knew I did. I knew I had to swing, because I couldn't just sit there and catch 11, 12 pounds like everybody else. Kind of like what we've been doing, to stay in the points overall in the year and play it safe. I had to take risks if I was going to make it. So at 11 o'clock, I didn't even have a limit, but I thought you need to bump some of that stuff and give it an hour or so and see if it can happen. And dude, it happened. Giant fish for me at the time, which was only a 5-pounder. It's not a giant for Rayburn, but it looked like a 12 when it hit. It exploded. And it goes down to, just like, guys, y'all are going to have to watch this on my YouTube video when it comes out. I think everything will drop this week. But golly, I've got this fish all the way to the boat, fought it, it's played out, like it's done. I've got her there beside me, and I'm about to put my hand up underneath her, and she decides to make another little run, and she runs, and there's a brush pile there, and my coingler screams, "Don't let her go in that brush pile!" And I mean, the second he says it, my line just gets tight, and she's in it and hung up, and it is a heartbreaker. But anyway, you'll have to watch the YouTube to see the end of that. But it's quite a show.
You're not going to describe it and then drive more people to your YouTube channel to watch it?
Yeah. It was incredible, dude. It was incredible.
And the crazy thing
is, all the hope and everything comes out of the air, but then minutes, and I mean full minutes later, the excitement possibly comes back.
And you also have to understand, if you've been watching Brad's YouTube and listening to the recaps on the show throughout the year, every tournament you've had a heartbreaker, and it has not gone your way, whether it's a mistake on your part or something that's just uncontrollable in the universe.
In the middle of this one, I bring that up in the heat of...
Oh, really? While you're in the pickle?
While I'm in the pickle, I'm like, damn it, this is ridiculous. Yep.
John, execution-wise, you mentioned that you lost a couple on the first day that would have really helped and pushed your weight up. But throughout the entire year, looking back on it execution-wise, and I would imagine it would have to be pretty strong considering you qualified in the overall averaging 46th place. Did you boat a lot of key bites throughout the 9 events that could have gone 50-50 and you managed to get your hands on them?
Yeah, I did. When you're doing any kind of treble hook fishing or like jerkbait fishing or anything of that nature, you're going to lose fish. And I don't subscribe to the going around telling everybody about how the fish you lost, and kind of complaining about it.
I do.
Because my theory is you're going to lose fish, so you just need to get twice as many bites as everybody else. So, the ones you lose don't matter as much. And like those 2 fish that I lost on day 1, yes, they would have helped. Yes, they would have felt good. But they were weird fish that actually taught me about how the fish were behaving. the 5-pounder, I was reeling my jerkbait past a tree because it was only like 10 foot of line out left. And he short lined me. He jumped out from the tree and grabbed it. So when I set the hook or pulled into it, he immediately jumped. And so I don't know that he even had it completely in his mouth. So that's just an odd thing, but it kind of taught me how they were biting, that they were needing that bait moving, you know what I mean, the big fish, and that the big fish were hanging on the trees, like really, really tight where I couldn't even see them on my live scope. So I used that to my advantage to kind of help me out through the rest of the tournament. The only fish that I really lost that I can think of right now that would have given me a monster amount of points was the Red River Day 2. I think I only weighed in a couple fish, or maybe even one. It was a really bad day for me, but I had an absolute giant in the pads just own me. And what happened was I was in there with big heavy braid, big heavy weights, and I had 4 or 5 different flipping sticks of lighter, you know, progressively getting lighter on the way down. And as the bites went away in the day, I picked up my finesse rod, if you will, for pads. And of course, the one bite that I get on that thing is just a monster. And he owned me. When I set the hook, he had already had me doubled over and got me in the pads. And so that one fish right there did haunt me. I thought that there's a potential that I was not going to make the elites because I didn't land that one fish. So other than that, I think the season was pretty good. I mean, the fish that I lost, you're just going to lose some fish. So.
We're going to take our first break of the show. When we come back, I want to run through briefly, Brad, your Central Division that you qualified in, a key moment in each tournament that allowed you to win the points championship. And then, John, just a quick key moment, and I'll give you a chance to think about it during the break, in each of the 9 events that you look back and say, that was key, that was key, that was key. That allowed you to qualify for it. So very exciting BTL today. A lot of live viewers on the show. And then following that, we will open up the Sunline hotline. If anybody wants to call in, ask Brad and John questions, congratulate them, whatnot. The Sunline hotline will be open after that. So it is BTL on a Tuesday, October 25th with 2023 Elite Series qualifiers. Bradley Hallman and John Soukup. We will be back right after this.
Your key to better fishing this season is Elite FS, now available at a new lower price. Get Elite FS 9 today for $9.99, and we'll throw in a C-Map reveal chart, our premium mapping solution, for free. Elite FS works with all state-of-the-art Lowrance sonar, from chirp, side scan, and down scan imaging with fish reveal to high-resolution active target live sonar. Elite FS9 and C-Map reveal. Offer ends August 31st.
The new Puma STS has been redesigned from the ground up. With the angler, design, function, and performance in mind, nothing on this new offering was compromised, and the only thing carried over from the previous version is the name. Based on the Soft Touch series hull that started with the flagship Jaguar, this new model is nimble and performs incredibly well at all speeds with either a 250 or 300 horsepower engine. Featuring a new 96-inch wide-body footprint, this hull measures out at 20 foot 7 inches in length. Industry-leading design coupled with tournament-winning performance. The Puma STS from Basscat. Feel the rush.
We're just about ready to go, ladies and gentlemen. Get in order.
Once again, Drew Cook is in the driver's seat.
When you're catching fish for a living, you can't let a little cold, rain, heat, humidity, or anything else get in the way of a payday. I wear APCO. Any fish, any water.
The KVD 100 jerkbait. 15 different colors. A perfect combination of roll, wiggle, and flash. Increased castability. 3D eyes. Premium black nickel hooks. KVD. Tie one on. Striking lures.
Are you looking to install your own fishing electronics? Well, the Bass Tank is here to help you. The solution is the Bass Tank Power Harness. It takes the guesswork out of installation. No more voltage issues or interference. Designed by an engineer, so that you can get professional results right there in your own garage. Installation done right with the help of the Bass Tank Power Harness. You can feel confident knowing that your installation was done right. The Bass Tank Power Harness. Give us a call or order yours today at thebasstank.com.
All right, welcome back to BTL on a Tuesday with Elite Series qualifiers. Bradley Hallman and John Soukup. And before the break, I wanted to go through and just do a key moment, because I think in any championship run, and that's what you guys had, championship runs. Brad, you won the points division. John, anytime you can finish at the top. You know, and I have to give it to Bass. One of the things that they do, they have done, I feel like, in the past couple of years is really listen to their anglers. And 2 years ago, there were some situations with anglers who fished all of them, and they paid $16,200 in entries. They're $35,000, $40,000 in. They travel around the country, and I believe it was Sam George. They finished like fourth in the overall, and they went down the division list instead of the overall for the double qualifiers. So the double qualifiers went through the division list, and a lot of the anglers said, man, that's, you know, we're giving you 3 times the entry fees. We're dedicating 4 months of our lives to this. It should be the opposite way around. So they changed that for the double qualifiers, and there's only, I think, 1 or 2 last year. So they changed that for the double qualifiers for this year. So it just went 1, 2, 3 in each division. And then all of the double qualifiers from those divisions went to the overall. So it actually ended up going 6th down in the overall. That's an example of BASS listening to the anglers, doing what made sense to me and to a lot of other people, and John was a beneficiary of that this year. Then they obviously listened again, and now they're doing the 9 overall for the next year. But that's how John got in with the 6. So I just want to go back through, and you know, 35 points may seem like a lot, but when you go down to it over the course of 9 events, that's literally like one fish. That's like 30 points is one fish, especially when we're going to places like Cherokee and Florida and Oneida, where weights are just absolutely stacked. When you have 200 plus anglers, doesn't take much to move 30. So let's start off in Florida this year. John had an 8th. You had an 8th place finish on the Kissimmee chain Toho. Key moment in that event. Quickly here, because I mean, heck, we could be here for 6 hours then.
Yeah, was moving. I think that's going to be a little bit of the key theme, was moving. I moved off some fish to find some other fish, and went into Toho, which I hadn't practiced, and found them at the end of day 1. Caught them really good and put me on the fish to start with for day 2.
Cherokee Lake, 60th place. That was one of the top 10.
Yeah, no, I just landed on the wrong size fish. I think all the fish went up to the bank, and I wasn't there. You know, a lot of guys caught them that hadn't been catching them, and I was catching them so good I just missed out. I overlooked. So I don't really have a key fish on that one.
3rd place on the James River. That was a big event for you, John. Huge event for you.
Yeah, if I was to bottle up how to fish a tournament and to keep that with me for the rest of my life, that was it. I fished that one. I knew I was fishing great in that one. I started out bed fishing on day 1, had to move to throwing a spinnerbait in a completely different creek on day 2, and by day 3 I was running completely new water with a crankbait on the main river. So it was all about decisions there. I had some big fish. I had a couple 6-pounders that I caught on beds. I had a 6.5 that I caught on a spinnerbait on day 2, and I had like a 7.5 that I caught last cast or so of the day on a crankbait. So like. There was a couple 20. I think I had a 23-pound sack one of those days. So that was just, like I said, man. That was the tournament. I need to bottle that and keep that with me, man. That's how I need to fish every year, every event.
Best decision making of the year, in my opinion, based on what I know, came at Ross Barnett, where you actually finished 62nd. But a lot of people don't know how good that 62nd was.
Yeah. So. I went into an area on day. To start with, I had a little shad thing going on the riprap with a spinnerbait, and day 1 I roll in, I jump one off, and then it just goes dead. And I don't have very many fish, don't have anything going on very well. I go into a backing area where I'd punched some fish up, and Charlie Hartley was actually back in there, and he allowed me to come in on him, and he left. And dude, it was an amazing thing, because it allowed me to catch a little bit of a limit on day one. But day two, I tried to duplicate what I did on day one. I couldn't. And the last half hour of the day, I looked up the sky starts rolling, the wind starts blowing. I thought, and I don't have any fish in the live well. I don't think maybe one or two little ones. So I ran back to the riprap and ran down the riprap, and I caught 4 keepers in 15 minutes and filled my limit out. So that was definitely a good decision on that one. And
then you grinded out a 46th place finish at Oneida.
Yeah, Oneida. I had him. I had him on a jerk bait. On day one, I was catching them really, really well, and I expected to do the same thing on day two, and I rolled out there, and they just disappeared, man. I really thought that they sunk to the bottom. They sunk away from the rock pile. They sunk down away. It was like the pressure got to them. So I did squeak out a limit on day two, but it wasn't near what limit. I think I had 17 pounds or 18 pounds on day one. So just keeping and staying. Oh, at the end of day two, I went ahead and went out to the rock piles out in the middle of the lake, and I dropped. Yeah, I shackled him. I drifted a drop shot, which I've never done in my life, and caught a 4.5 probably the last 15 minutes.
Oh, that was
on day
massive.
two. So that did help out quite a bit.
Biggest grind of the year, Upper Chesapeake Bay. I idle past you with half an hour left to fish. You have your hood up, your head down. You don't look back, and I tell my co-angler, this is not good. I look at John. John gives me this. 0. I said, oh my. I check in. Then you come in with like 2 for almost 6 pounds, which is a crazy good comeback in the last hour.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, day one at Chesapeake was no fun. I'll put it that way. I ran up to go fish for smallmouth. They weren't biting. I went to my grass fish. They weren't biting. I was running down to go all the way to Baltimore because I had some fish found in some docks, and I got pulled over. I've never been pulled over in the middle of the tournament. Dude, I was so stressed. I was about to get a ticket and get disqualified. They gave me a warning. I guess I was running in the middle of the lake, but I'd ran too close to that no fish zone.
Aberdeen Proving Grounds.
Yeah, and the wind was blowing. They held me for about an hour, and the wind was blowing really, really strong too. And so when they let me go, they gave me the warning. They were pretty upset. I guess they caught some guys fishing in the Aberdeen Proving Ground, so they were pulling everybody over. So it was just bad timing. But like I said, I was way out in the middle of the lake, guys. It wasn't even like I was running the shore.
And we were told we could drive through that too by the tournament director. Correct?
Yeah. And like I said, it was a warning and all that. So I just decided to go back to around takeoff area. I had 0 fish, and I picked up a chatterbait, and I started catching them. I caught a limit on day one. It wasn't a big limit, but I caught them. And then day two, I thought, well, I'm just going to do that all day long, and surely I'll catch a pretty good tag. Well, by the time you saw me, I don't know what time it was, 2 o'clock or so, I had 0 fish in the boat. And so I was trying all sorts of stuff, and then I went back to it with like 40 minutes left. I came across a post on the dock, man. I threw up there, and a 4-pounder jumps on it. And my co-angler goes nuts. He's a young guy, and it was pretty cool. And literally I went past that dock and decided, you know what, I'm going to go back. So I picked up a flipping bait and went right back down that same dock and caught a 2-pounder on that, and then I never got another bite the rest of the day. So, yeah, those are huge
Those
points.
2 right there, you don't make the Elite Series without that. Or you don't make the Elite Series without the 4.5 at Syracuse.
Yeah, I think.
Or you don't make the Elite Series without the 15-minute flurry at Ross Barnett.
Yeah.
Wow.
This whole season though.
All right, 64th at the Red River. I don't know if there's much to say. Just an absolute grind there. I feel like you thought you were really going to catch him there, and that you thought you could do really well heading into that one, and it ended up being a salvage job.
Yeah, well, 2 of the guys in the top 10 I fished right around, and one of them had a better draw on day one, and I watched him catch him right in front. I watched David Gasson catch him right in front of me on day one, and he was doing something. He must have been doing something different, but he was also sitting on the juice of where they were at, and my mistake, day one, I did good. I mean, I had decent weight on day one. I only had 4 fish, but I think I had 10 pounds. And so I was feeling pretty confident. Bradley and I have talked about our mistakes on Red River, that we're going to help each other, hold each other accountable for next year. So these are all good lessons going into the elites for me, to be honest with you. But day two, I end up staying in that same area thinking I could grind them out because I watched David catch 12 pounds right in front of me. And I ended up catching like 2 little fish, and I lost a giant. But that was just that was probably the downturn of my fishing. That's when I probably started fishing pretty bad.
I feel like you really started feeling the pressure at Hartwell. You finished 86th there at the beginning of the year, knowing forward-facing sonar in the fall. I thought that was going to be a home run for you, and you ended up finishing 86th.
Yeah, but once again, I think I was in like 20th after day one, you know. So like I caught 13 pounds or something on day, or 14 pounds on day one, something like that. I rolled up and they were just jumping all over my stuff. And day two, I just went back to some of the same areas and the fish were still there, but I just couldn't get them to bite. And so the rest of the day was just a scramble fest and me fishing really bad. That was when the pressure started getting to me, feeling like I was throwing the thing away. And I mean, I was reeling one back on a swim bait over 80 foot of water and my line breaks. I had like 3 different, break offs that day. It was just one of those days where it was all falling apart and I could not get the wheels on straight. And to be honest with you, that was probably the moment I was throwing this whole Elite Series dream away. I really felt like I was on a downhill spiral. It wasn't good.
And then we obviously talked in depth about what went down at Sam Rayburn with the 23rd place finish. So when it was all said and done, a 46th place average, 6th place in the overall, and a 30-point cushion onto the Elite Series. That kind of shows you guys, you go through that. I mean, shows you how big a top 10 in a 200-plus boat field is. 225 boats in those first 3, and you rack out an 8th place in Florida, a 3rd place on the James River, and then a 200 boat average in the rest of them. So, I mean, even though you're finishing 46th or 62nd or 64th, you're still in the top 25, 30% of the field. So your biggest key this year was a couple top 10s, no bombs, stayed in the top third of the field in all of the events, and that was your ticket to success.
It sounds right.
All right, Brad, we're just going to do your 3 events because you fished all 9 as well.
Yep.
But it became kind of apparent following the red, well, I guess you were in it in the overall too for the majority of the year, but following Hartwell
put the,
you knew that
over.
All your eggs were in the Central Division. So the Central Division was a very interesting one, and I think a lot of people looked at that Central Division and went, yuck. Just a lot of grimy fisheries at grimy times of the year, and you knew that it would be a hunting and pecking, and a lot of people pointed to and said, dude, this is a Hallman schedule. This is a schedule that Bradley Hallman should do well on. And it was Ross Barnett in Mississippi, the Red River, and Sam Rayburn.
Yeah.
And you kicked things off with a bang at Ross Barnett and kind of did exactly what you wanted to do. But if I remember correctly, it wasn't all roses. You made a couple key decisions there that proved critical.
Day one was not in a bang. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great. I was somewhere just right outside of the cut, the money cut. I don't remember exactly where we were, but I had a pretty decent practice. It wasn't spectacular, but it was doing what I like to do. Right, the fish were spawning, post spawn, pre spawn, all in that mix, and it was pretty cool. So I ended up fishing around a lot of guys day one, and we all caught them. Some caught them better than others in our area, but we pretty well had smoked it. And day two, I went into it pretty open-minded and started there, and it just felt like it was done and finished. And I had an area that I had not been to yet in the tournament, and honestly, I only had a few bites there in practice, but it was just right around the corner from where I was. And so I slipped over there. What was unique about it was my biggest bite by a long shot in practice that I had shooken off. And I slipped over there and started fishing around. There was no one around. And I was like, there must not really be much here. You know how you think. And I start flipping around, and I just got one of those bites that it was a giant fish to begin with. It was over 7. I landed, but it was one of those bites that I love to have where I call it's that turn on the light moment, like it flips the light switch, and you see a lot of things all of a sudden really quickly that you did not see before. And this is how it works for me. And it just opened my eyes to a lot, and I knew exactly what that fish was doing. I knew exactly why she was there. I knew exactly why no one had found them. I understood a lot really quick from one bite, and I just took off from there. I had about 3.5, 4 hours left to fish, and just tried to catch as many as I could. Caught a couple more big ones. Ended up with 17 pounds or something and jumped me way, way, way up. I don't remember where I finished, but it was a good day, and one of those bring you where you need to get type days, you know.
Red River, especially on day 2, you had to make some critical decisions, and I actually saw you running around on the Red River on day 2, which was shocking to me.
So Red River's when things kind of changed. It really became late in the season for me, and I'm just being honest here. After some things at Mississippi had happened, some things at the Red started happening where I truly felt like in my gut, I mean, I felt this, guys. I felt it in my bones, and I didn't talk about this. I didn't even talk about it with y'all, but I felt like I was going to make it. This was going to be the year. I didn't know how. I didn't know why I felt that way, but I had faith that it was going to happen. All the way through. I started the Red River. I ended up putting on a dock. You guys know how I ended up on the dock. You know, I parked my boat, had a slip I paid for at night, you know, and so I didn't go to the hotel with y'all with the trailer. I left my boat there. And Clay Dyer ended up having the stall next to me.
Mm-hmm.
And we were visiting the first morning. It's dark. We're both there early. Boats are out there starting to float and putting in and stuff. And Clay and I were talking, and he was asking me, you know, about this and that. And he said, "You're doing really good in the overalls, you know, or you think you're going to make it this year?" And I told him, you know, really trying, a lot of pressure. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, man, in the dark," I said, "lead us in prayer, just you and me, before any co-anglers, before anybody else comes down here." And the power of Clay and his life, it did a lot, man. And it inspired me. I mean, deeply, deeply. That man comes out there and does what he does, because it's I wanted to get it done. And then day 1, in my usual, this is how I've been all year, if I pick a starting spot, it is guaranteed that it sucks. And so I picked a starting spot that sucked at the Red River. And but my second spot did not. And I got in there, but there was already some guys in there, and they had been catching them. I came too late. But fortunately for me, one of the guys that was there was Andrew Upshaw. And there was 2 or 3 of us coming in, and Upshaw just said, "Hallman." I said, "Yeah." And I didn't know they'd been catching them at the time. I mean, I was just trying to get in there, you know, politely, without pushing people, getting in anybody's way. And where I really wanted to be was past where all the boats were, like past where everybody was fishing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like way back in there.
I wanted back in the back to the right, like as far back as you could get. And Upshaw was like, "Hallman." I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Get in here behind me. Come behind me." So like he had the front kind of, you know how you kind of position, and there's different people fishing. If I was going to run over somebody, I would have to put my boat on where somebody was casting to get there. And Upshaw allowed me to come around and get behind him and go to the back. And it was huge, dude. I got back there and caught him. I told him that night I was super appreciative of what he'd done for me there, because he didn't have to do that. Great friend. I mean, I know he's my roommate, but just really appreciated it. And that was a big deal there at the Red River, no doubt. That was the big thing, because that gave me that big bag the first day to be in the top 10.
Yep. And then you made some good decisions on day 2 late. Didn't you pick up a couple late on day 2? Because I know you came idling in, and I was in that area, and you're like, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "It's dead." And you idled back. And then the next thing I know, you whip the boat around, and it's not easy to get back where we were.
No.
You whip the boat around and say, "I ain't doing it. I'm not going down back there." And you left.
Yeah. It reminded me of Okeechobee when I won there in 16, how that place looked in the back of the Red River compared to how it looked when we started fishing it. It was just 2 totally different places. And at Okeechobee, you just couldn't get a bite after it had been destroyed by boats and wind and weather. And the same thing had happened in the back of that. It was a different ecosystem altogether, and I didn't want to waste time. So I turned around instantly and idled all the way back out of that thing. That was a good decision. It allowed me to catch a few more fish and get those points that are so, important.
All right, and then obviously Sam Rayburn, which we talked about that before. It would have to be that. It would have the
biggest turning point at Sam Rayburn was not day 1. It wasn't that big fish. the turning point of day 2 was the point, because I pulled up. This is it, dude. Everything's on the line. I mean, and I know this. It is 1 or 1:30 in the afternoon, and I've got 2 fish that weigh, I'm telling you, they weigh 3 pounds, maybe 3.1. I mean, little ones. And I see John, and I fired up and ran over towards him, stopped to see how his day was going. John was having, he'd accomplished what he thought, he needed. You could tell in his demeanor that he felt good, and things were going his way. And he was really kind of looking for another big bite, weren't you, John? You were really kind of looking to really take advantage of that opportunity where you were sitting early in the day and really maybe capitalize and move up even further. Whereas I'm in the other boat. And John asked me, he said, "Are you spinning out?" And I said, "No, dude, I'm not. I'm really good." And this went back to that gut feeling that I had, that faith thing. And I can't describe it. So I left John and I went on to the back of this area that we were in, and started fishing, and I caught a 374, which would have been my 3rd fish, which is a big fish for me out of the grass. I mean, it is. It's a big one. And it was kind of like that moment that I told and tried to describe that happened in Mississippi. It was that light switch moment. And it was like, it's here. It's right here. I have to catch them right here, right now. And I had faith in it. And I caught what I caught, and it gave me up around 12 pounds, which I knew would give me a fighting chance in the points, but it could still not work out depending on who caught what. But it allowed me to then go do what I wanted to do, which was go throw that topwater and try to catch a giant. And I did that for the last hour and a half, and it didn't work out. But as I was riding in at the end of the day, and I'm coming across, and I drive by Nick LeBrun, he's out there on the main lake on a pile or something. And I'm thinking as I'm going to weigh in, I don't know if I have enough, but what I do know is I have given every single thing I have in my soul to try to be able to finish as good as I can. I don't have any energy left. I have nothing left. I've given all I can give all year long. And if it's not enough, it's not enough. But I had that faith that it was going to happen this year, dude. I did. Like, I never backed off of that. I felt like it was going to happen.
Sunline Hotline is now open if you want to talk to Brad or John. Brad, you can hear Brad answer you. You won't be able to hear John just because he's far away, and we'll have that figured out next month when we change it. But the Sunline Hotline, if you want to talk to, congratulate, ask a question to Brad or John, go ahead and ask your question, and then we will answer it off air. That number for the Sunline Hotline is 405-253-5543. Go ahead and call in now if you have a question, once again, or a comment, or just want to congratulate. 405-253-5543. While we're waiting for a call to come in, key bait, anything that you guys rode, John, was there anything that you kind of rode throughout the year that when you look back on it, you said, man, that really, when it came down to it, I reached for this and it got me back on track?
Probably a jerkbait. I probably caught more fish on a jerkbait this year than most people did, I would guess.
Multiple scenarios on it, or was it all utilizing live scope?
I mean, I'm going to utilize live scope as much as I can with a jerkbait. That's kind of the thing I can do, is I can control that thing a lot better. Whether I need to go faster, deeper, slower, all of the above. And I can actually read the fish's personalities a lot more with a jerkbait. With a drop shot, you can throw it in front of them and they'll follow it down, or they won't, or they'll eat it fast. You can tell personality a little bit on that. But with a horizontal presentation that you can also make go vertical, you can tell whether they want to go up, whether they want to go down, whether they want it fast or slow. And I can just learn a lot more about the fish's behavior. It may not be the lure I'm going to use to catch them, but I can learn a lot more about their behavior with it. So,
all right. Good deal. Brad, I will get your answer to that right after we go to the Sunline Hotline. Hi, you are on with Matt, Brad, and John. Who are we talking with?
Steve Myers from Virginia. I just want to congratulate both of you. I just got a question to ask. Make sure that, do you guys have your sponsors all lined up?
That's a great question. Thank you, Steve. And we'll take that off air then. Sponsorship for next year. Obviously a very quick turnaround time, less than 4 months before the start of the Bassmaster Elite Series season there. Brad, we'll start with you.
Well, for me personally, do I have it all done? No. But, like we've talked about, I've got quite a few right now that I've worked with for many years. And so it's not like a rookie coming into this situation where I've got to work and work and work. So I wouldn't say that I have all of them lined out, but I definitely have, my core group, which I would be just fine with riding right now, personally. How about you, John?
Well, I've got the bass tank, and I wouldn't be able to fish professionally if it wasn't for the bass tank from the beginning. I never had a chance to fish nationally until the bass tank came along. So I've been taken care of there. Other than that, obviously, I think there's a lot of more riding it and expenses to be able to make this a long-term, a long-term deal. I think that working on sponsors is going to be something I don't think we're going to have to be able to stop on. Going to have to continue,
Yeah.
Once again, that Sunline hotline number, 405-253-5543. If you have a question or comment for John or Brad, while we're waiting for another call to come in, Brad, your kind of go-to bait throughout the year. Like I said, you had a crazy good year, and it's amazing to me. You look at John, and John just was able to avoid those 90s and 100s and crack a couple top 10s. You didn't have the top 10s, but you had a 101st and a 96. Otherwise, you were more consistent, 57th, 56th, 14th, 68th, 56th, 26th, and 16th. It was just those two little bobbles that dropped you down there. But throughout the season, particularly the Centrals, anything in particular that you reach for in crunch time that seemed to kind of be a theme?
BFE, without a doubt. When things would get tough for me, I pick that flipping bait up, and it's just my comfort level. It's my comfort zone. Gets a lot of demons and thoughts out of your head, and you just kind of go to work and let the fish tell you. There's never been a point in my fishing career where that flipping stick doesn't work, and BFE on the end of it for sure was, for me, a definite strength.
All right, Frankie Jr. Is on and says, John's jerkbait organization is sick. I will agree. When it comes to organization, John, I think one of your biggest strengths is your ability to stay organized with everything you have on and off the water. But your in-boat organization, while it may look chaotic while you are in the process of it, it's pretty amazing the way you have everything so neatly organized. And do you think that's a big asset in being able to remain mentally calm on the water?
Well, I have to. I mean, I am way more calm on the water the night before if I've gone through and touched everything. I don't care if I touch it and move it back and put it in the same spot. Like, just to be engaged, to know exactly what I have in the boat, why it's there, what the purpose is. There's just no random thing in my boat, even down to the colors. So, my colors are pretty simple. I only have like 3 or 4 different colors that I rotate depending on a certain situation. So, there's no need for me to waste time scrambling. I can get right to what I need.
Celebratory, Jacob wants to know what the celebratory dinner was at the Stump afterwards. That was probably the most relaxed I've seen both of you in about 3 years.
I'm hoping. I shot a little video there. I'm hoping it ends up in my YouTube video. I'm hoping.
Both of you had steak, though.
Oh, yeah, we definitely had steak.
Yeah, we had steak. And, one of the things I want to say, Matt, one of the coolest parts about this whole thing is I'm a Bradley Hallman fan. So, we're talking as if we both got to qualify, but then there's another portion of this just being able to be a part of Bradley qualifying and supporting Bradley, and to see his, dream and passion come true back to him after everything he's gone through. Dude, I literally said, I'm going to order whatever Bradley orders, and I'm just going to sit there and watch. I'm going to watch Bradley, man. It was really awesome to get to see Bradley.
I tell you something we can share with the listeners that we haven't even talked about amongst ourselves. We stay in the same house, and we share a lot of information. Some tournaments end up being more than others, depending on the situations. Towards the end, for John and I, right, we're both really good friends. We're roommates. I'm sponsored by the Bass Tank. It's my flagship sponsor, the title down the side of my boat. Towards the end, we're both really pushing to make the elites, right? Me and John both. And it was amazing how we were able to work and navigate that communication and sharing information without stepping on each other's toes, respecting each other's individuality, but yet still trying to help each other. Did you notice that, John? And then by towards the end, we were like a little bit less and less because like, what can I really do to help him? I don't want to hurt him. I don't want, you know what I mean? But yet we're still kind of fighting for one spot, right? I mean, it could be one spot, either you or me. And we didn't want to hurt each other. We didn't want to, you know what I mean? And it was cool how, and we haven't talked about this, no one. So everybody listening, this is the first time we've talked about it. And I really kind of noticed it a little bit more as we went down into, especially by Hartwell and then Rayburn, staying in the same house, and for us to be able to compete for that same spot, but not hurt each other. You know what I mean? And still be pulling for each other, but yet our conversation wasn't at the level that it was earlier in the season, right? Wouldn't you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, definitely got more exact, more honest, not more honest, but more in depth, I guess is the word I would use, for more clear about what we're talking about. And, man, I mean, from my point of view, it came from learning that you literally have a guy that's sincerely rooting for you and vice versa. And that if I was going to lose and not make the elites, I wanted to lose to Bradley Hallman. I didn't want to lose to somebody else. And so the best scenario happened, man. We actually helped to lift each other up to where we were both able to qualify. Yeah. And I mean, dude, it's something to celebrate, honestly. Yeah. I mean, it just shows you how teamwork can, really, really benefit. I mean, you never want to succeed at anything in life at the demise of somebody else. You always want to be able to be the best fisherman you are, and that you beat the fish that allowed you to beat all the other competitors, not that you sabotage somebody else. It's nothing like that. So
Right.
All right, we're going to take our second break of the show. When we come back, I want to dive into something. If you're comfortable talking with it, Brad, you said something after you qualified that was kind of surprising to me, but in the same time not surprising. You're in a different position, like I said, than I am, than John are. Family, 4 kids, you've been there, you've done that, you've got a lot of hardware on the walls, and this was your 3rd year of the Opens. And you said something that I thought was really interesting. I don't know if you know where I'm going with this.
I don't.
Okay, I'll just ask it, and if you're not comfortable going with it, we won't. But we're going to take our final, well, I don't know, we might take another break. Who knows how long we're going to go here, of the show, BTL, on a Tuesday. Bradley Hallman, John Soukup. I'm Matt Pangrak, talking about the 2022 Bassmaster Open seasons with 2 Elite Series qualifiers, Bradley and John. So we'll be back right after this, BTL on a Tuesday.
Get the best patterns backed by tournament data. Start by finding the best 10% of your lake. Know exactly what to look for and what to throw. After that, just put them in the boat. Try the Deep Dive app today.
Look at that beast right there.
Have you considered purchasing new electronics for your rig? The type of mounts you choose to protect your investment should be part of the decision-making process. No matter if you prefer 1, 2, or 3 graphs up front, Beatdown Outdoors has a solution for you. Adjustable, versatile, rigid, and made in the USA. What's your ultimate electronics setup? Check out the full selection of Beatdown Outdoors products by visiting beatdownoutdoors.com.
Elite Series Pro Daryl Gleason here. My Pro Guide batteries keep me going on those long tournament days and long practice days. Always plenty of juice, never fail. The best part about Pro Guide batteries, it's the people behind the company. They have over 40 years experience in the battery business, keeping all of us fishermen out on the water longer, catching more fish. Check them out at ProGuideBatteries.com.
What's up, Bass Talk Live fans? Brandon Polnick here. And ever since I won a couple Bassmaster Elite Series events on X-Zone Lures, I've been getting a bunch of questions of what makes them so special and different. And really, the truth is, it's in the details. The little details, things like no cheap fillers in their plastic. That gives you more lifelike action, more realistic and vibrant colors. But don't just take my word for it. Go to www.xzonelures.com and check them out for yourself.
The new Android series is the peak of the Denali lineup and offers the ultimate Denali experience. The Android series features 36-ton multi-directional graphite combined with interlock blank technology for added strength. Each rod is outfitted with Royal titanium guides that will not fail. The blank is fitted into an easy-touch, soft-feel EVA foam grip with exposed blank reel seat. This all allows the Android to transmit every movement of your bait and even the most subtle bites. The Android series is the finest rod Denali has ever made and offers an angler the ultimate fishing experience with a limited lifetime warranty. See the full lineup of Android rods at denalirods.com. Vibrating jigs are a great choice for any time of year, and the Kamikaze Swim-On is a perfect match for any vibrating jig. 2 sizes and the unique tail design gives it a bait fish profile and a great swimming action for realism. There are 17 colors. See them all at bigbitebaits.com.
The Spro Little John crankbait has been around for almost 15 years, and it is one of my go-to crankbaits whenever I need a fish in the boat, so you can never have enough new colors. That's why Spro's coming out with a handful of new colors, including Pearl Shad, which has this bleached out white look, but it's got this pearlescent, really, really pretty. We've got Copper Shad, which looks amazing in the water. It's got that purple flake on the back, really, really pops in the water. And then if you want some real pop, we've got Sparkle Shad, nothing but sparkles all over this thing. And then last but not least, we've got the matte Sexy Shad, just a really different looking color for a crankbait. So you want to give them a little different look, that matte Sexy Shad is definitely the one to go with. All these colors are available in the original Little John and the MD.
Combining one of the most popular hook styles with Gamakatsu's beefier Superline offering, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend delivers the strength necessary to target big fish in heavy cover. Well suited for braided line and heavier fluorocarbon, the Gamakatsu Superline Offset Round Bend is built using stronger Superline wire that allows anglers to easily fish a finesse worm around heavy cover. The round bend offers a larger bite area, perfect for any worm presentation, while increasing your hookup ratios. The newly enhanced Z-Bend holds your plastics on the hook longer, reducing the number of pull-offs and reducing damage to plastics. Available in 2/0, 3/0, 4/0, and 5/0, this is the most durable worm hook, designed for heavier lines that hold your bait on longer.
Preparation is key to success. And that preparation starts well before you ever hit the water. You're only as strong as your connection to the fish, and your line is that critical connection. Confidence in your line every minute of every day on the water is a necessity, and failure, it's not an option. Sunline makes the fluorocarbon, nylon, and braided lines to give you the strength to guarantee your confidence.
Welcome back. Great show today. You guys are really giving up the juice. Elite Series qualifiers, Brad Hallman, John Soukup. And I wanted to get into something that you alluded to that kind of surprised me and kind of didn't. But first, we have a fun hypothetical question from our good friend Clay Williamson. He goes, I got a hypothetical. Say Matt and Brad make the final day. Matt is in 5th, Brad is in 8th. This feels like an 8th grade math question right now. Matt is in 5th, Brad is in 8th. 8 ounces separation, and Matt is 2 pounds out of the lead. Brad needs to jump 1 spot to qualify. Does Matt zero? I'm going to tell you right now, no. I'm going for the win.
Yeah.
I'm 100% go for the win because I would have had a chance to make the Bassmaster Classic then, which for me would be just as big as qualifying to be in the Bassmaster Classic. And I think Brad wants to earn everything that he would absolutely have. So I would have no problem finishing 2nd and hope that Bradley beats me. But I'm going for the W in that scenario. Plus, not to mention, 10th pays about $6,000 and 1st plays about $50,000.
Yeah. You could ask John and I both and ask that question, put either one of us in there, and we pretty much know what Matt's going to do. We know the answer there for sure.
Shockingly, I try to. I'm pretty mellow on the show and whatnot, but I am competitive.
Very.
It does upset me when I don't catch them, and I do get excited when I do catch them, and I do have a drive to succeed.
Yes.
I don't know if that always comes across in the show because sometimes I'm brutally honest about what I feel like my shortcomings are. Try to share that with the viewers and listeners because I know that there's so many that feel the same. And one of the problems in the industry is you have a lot of people who don't talk about what they don't know, their shortcomings, their issues. Like when we do the battery stuff, like when we do all that, there's just certain stuff that I think everybody expects everybody to know. Well, if you don't know it, you don't know it. And then you get to a point where you're scared to say, I don't know it because you're so ingrained in it. And you've seen that with me, but I'm very competitive.
You are. I mean, if guys don't realize you're competitive, I mean, of the 4 guys in the house, you lead the charge. Believe that or not.
No way.
Yeah,
there's no way.
Dude, you push. When you get on your stuff, you are as competitive by far as anybody in the house, including John.
I don't feel like that. But I have an inner drive.
You got it.
All right. Speaking of inner drive, Bradley, there's a lot of people who have gotten to know you over the past 3 years. You started your YouTube channel, became more of a regular on BTL, embraced the social media, interacted with the viewers and listeners. You've even talked about how ironic it is that you fished the Elite Series for 5 or 6 years. No one knew who the hell you were. You win 2 FLW Tour events. A couple people know who you are. You start a YouTube channel, started interacting with the viewers, and then now you're like, he's like, I went to the Classic. Everyone knows who I am. He's like, what the heck? I've won all this. I'm over $1 million, and all I got to do is... Yeah. But it's because people have gotten to see your personality. You're doing it. You're 3 years into the Opens. You mentioned this. 4 kids, a family, 2 FLW Tours, Toyota Series, 4 years on the Elite Series, 6 top 10s on the Elite Series, $1 million in earnings, career as a plumber. And we're like, dude, like Brad's grinding. You get done with this year and you just casually say, I don't know if I could have done it again. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And you just kind of, you're like, yeah, I called my wife. I talked to my wife, and I think this would have been the last year that I could have done it. And then it passed, and we hadn't talked about it again. Are you comfortable talking about it now that it's done and over with?
Yeah.
All right.
It was just, I told you that I knew when we came over here 3 years ago, when Scott and Todd and Andrew and I left where we were to come over, I knew what we were getting into. I'd even told my wife, you brought this up that I told you early on. I told her, I said, this may take 3 years. I don't know, but this is not going to be easy for me. Number one, because I've never, ever been a very good points angler. I'm not good at it. I'm good at dropping 100 and something place finish. Now I can come back and win a derby the next week, but I can drop 101st out of 101 people. I knew it would be an uphill battle, but dude, it has been more of a grind than, I'm not saying it's more than I thought, but after 3 years of enduring it and enduring it with my family, and what people don't understand is, so like the difference between the Opens and Elites or any of the premier tour events, they're scheduled on the best lakes at the primary times of the year in the spring. The Opens are scheduled in not the premier bodies of water by any means. 225 boat fields take their toll. No off limits as far as practice time. These places that are not good to begin with are getting beat to death before a tournament ever starts. Lots and lots of co-anglers, and there's a lot to deal with different. And believe me, I've had plenty of experience dealing with one. And I don't mean 99.9% of co-anglers are wonderful, great. But there's always that 1%, and they can have an effect on your day drastically, whether you catch fish or not, or whether you make the elites or not, or whatever. It doesn't have to be they're throwing on top of you. It can just be they're, just like we talked about happened with Pig, a guy in the back of his boat. We had a co-angler literally lying to our friend, telling him, because he wanted him to go shallow, telling him, well, I've practiced with Hallman, and we caught a bunch of big ones on the bank. This is during the tournament. And the guy calls me that night, and he's like, did you practice with this guy? And I'm like, no. That is vengeful. But he's trying to get into his head, to get him to leave offshore to go to the bank. Anyway, that kind of stuff goes on. There's just a lot of variables that play in with all this, and it was the biggest thing. I haven't spent the 4th of July with my family in 3 years. Because we're scheduled on Labor Day weekend, Memorial Day weekend, 4th of July, all the holidays.
Mother's Day.
For 3 years.
Father's Day.
3 years I've missed all that with my family. Doesn't happen with those tours because they schedule them so those guys are home during that time. Anyway, you combine all that with a wife and 4 children. And my wife said 2 months ago, she came to me and she said, if this doesn't work out this year, are we really going to do this again? And I remember I had already started kind of thinking down that path. And I don't know what the answer would have been, Matt. If I hadn't have made it, would I have done it again? I don't know. I think that I would have. I think that, with the 9 being the system next year, you know how it is. And trying to, by the time January rolled around, I'd probably be ready to giddy up. But at the moment, like I said earlier, I had spent every bit of ounce of energy and given everything that I had for 3 years, and I was exhausted of beating my head against that wall.
Mm-hmm. John, like I said, you're in a little different scenario because this was the first year that you fished all the Opens, but you also took on the NPFL schedule this year. You also have 4 kids. You run the Bass Tank. You have several other business ventures. Was it wearing on you, and should you have not made it, were you ready to pony up and do it all again next year, or was this kind of a one and done and reevaluate where you're at?
I would have had to reevaluate what I'm doing. It's a big burden. This year was a big burden, and I think sometimes I take a lot of pride in my mental strength, but it was getting to me. My fishing was going downhill, things like that, and so I really needed this to happen this year more than what people know, and my wife needed this to happen too. You know what I mean? So.
I think you see a lot of people go, well, it's just a fishing tournament. And if you don't catch them, it's no big deal. But the way that I look at it, it is a fishing tournament. And there are things in life that are more important than a fishing tournament. But it's a career path and a goal that you chose to accomplish. And whether that's in the corporate world in an office where you're trying to meet deadlines, whether you're a truck driver traveling across the country to try to get the miles to support your family, whether you're trying to get a job promotion, you have to take the fact that it's an activity that a lot of people view as a leisure activity and something that is fun and a supplemental escape from their real job, and put the glasses of this is the job, this is the goal that we're all trying to accomplish, and that same stress, even though it is on the water and it is in a boat, is just as real as any other job or occupation where you are trying to move up, accomplish, become stable, financially benefit from. And I don't think that a lot of time in the fish you go, well, it's fishing, so what? You didn't catch him. But I mean, it's real life. Like, there's dozens of other people's family, and this is across the Elite Series, this is across MLF, this is across everything of these guys who are trying to do this. There's so much like, it affects so many tentacles and so many other people that also give up a little part or a big part of their lives for you and for us to be able to go out and chase that. And there's a very small percentage that actually get there.
Yeah.
So it's really cool that you guys actually have gotten there now. And then it all starts over again with a whole new set of challenges.
Yeah, that's really kind of how I wanted to put all this in a bow and wrap it up. Since I was on here today, I wanted to be very clear. And we don't have no stage time in the Opens, so there's no thinking. But this has been a 3-year grind, and I have had a wonderful, wonderful group of sponsorship, from Big Bite to Gamakatsu to the Bass Tank, Phoenix Boats. I mean, the list is long, and I am so appreciative of all of them for everything that they've done to stick this out with me, because it was a scary, scary gauntlet to leave a national tour to go back to a regional to try to qualify to go through this. And I was given advice from some of those people that this might be the direction to go. And I appreciate Falcon Rods, all of them, so much for everything that they continued to stay with me, even through the tough times. It was very hard, very, very hard, and I appreciate all of it very much. And I started this goal, had nothing to do. One of my best friends called me the other day, dude, and he said, I know it's a big accomplishment, and you should be proud of it, and you should cherish, but don't forget that your original goals when you left had nothing to do with qualifying for the Elite Series. Nothing. It had to do with win some blue trophies and try to win the Classic. And he is 100% right. And John and I have talked about that, and we're going to get our minds wrapped around that over the next couple of months, and we're going to go try to make some noise.
John, your support system, sponsors, family at home too, kind of echo what Brad said?
Oh, man. Yeah, there is zero way that you can do what we're doing with a healthy relationship unless you got the support. My wife, taking care of 4 kids, taking care of 4 businesses when I'm gone, behind me, she's, she is 100% the backbone that helps me do this. And, the NPFL, if it wasn't for the opportunity to fish the NPFL and the couple key wins that first year, to bring sponsors on board with me to help grow my, sponsor portfolio. Those guys that have risked everything they have at a business venture to create another league, is what's propelling me to. So from my family to other people making risks like the NPFL to my sponsors, the guys at the Bass Tank themselves putting up with me being on the road 16, 17 weeks out of the year and holding down the fort for me. Every single one of the guys at the Bass Tank have been a part of this, qualification. I've got a lot of sponsors, but Pradco, I signed with them at the beginning of the year. So Yum and Booyah coming on board, that's a developing thing that I'm really excited to this winter work with and to see how that translate go into an elite level. A lot of these sponsorships that I have, I feel like they came on board with me like in my youth as a fisherman, you know what I mean? Like early, and I'm not young, but you know what I mean? Early on, before a lot of guys have to make it to the elites before they get these sponsorship deals. And somehow I was blessed to not necessarily have to. Sunline, AFCO, I've been with them for a couple of years. My Alpha Angler rods, that was a really neat deal the way that developed with Jake Boomer, and to have Brandon Polnick was one of the first ones to be texting me while I'm sitting there waiting for the points to see if I actually qualified. To have guys like that behind you, rooting for you and pushing is, and I don't even have words for what it means, but it means everything when it comes down to it, to know that you got that kind of support system to push you forward. Because to be honest with you, while we're talking about all the good and the celebration, man, there is a lot of demons out there trying to attack you and pull you down constantly. And I went through a lot of that this year, a lot of negativity. And as the year ends, I look back and during it, while I was going through it, man, I was getting bitter and upset and angry. And I'm like, you ask that big question, why? And now looking back at it, I'm like, you know what? I'm glad this all happened the way it did before the elites. And I know, Matt, you were there right there with me as a friend, lifting me up during that, saying, man, this is going to benefit you down the road. And while that happens, a lot of times you're getting the right advice, but you're just like, you don't want to really hear it. But now looking back in hindsight, man, like I know what to prepare for and the negativity that's there and that surrounds and that will attack, but also what that does right here with inside your head and how my tournament results have been affected by that negativity. Not outward negativity, yes, but the negativity that I've allowed inside here. You know what I mean? And so Bradley, like one of the first things I did, what was it, Saturday, Bradley, we were driving home, and I just called Bradley and asked for help, man. I said, hey, listen, here's my fault. My fault is when I get attacked, I attack back way too hard. So I try to do that by just holding it in. Well, I become negative, and it affects my fishing. So I need help. I need help focusing on the goals, keeping positive, and I need someone that can be right there that knows me well enough that can call me out and just shake me loose from it. Because what's going to happen is I'll end up bombing a tournament if I don't. So when you ask about the sponsors and support system, without all that to fall back on, I mean, I'm just a bumbling mess, and I collapse, and I don't make this thing happen. I mean, it's the fact. So,
what was crazy to me that it was the first time I realized it. I've seen it before, but I've never really been kind of a part of it. And I feel like I was a small part of it since I fished it and traveled with you guys. I guess I haven't really seen it before. I was going to say maybe at the Bassmaster Classic banquet where everyone before and they've made the classic, but there's still a bunch of ball of nerves because they've got the tournament coming up. But this is one of the few sports activities, whatever you want to call it, where there's a lot of people and you have a lot of friends in it, and we're away from home a lot and traveling, especially, there's not been much return on investment on the Bassmaster Opens. And I know 100 of the guys. You see them every time. There goes Joel Willard. There goes, Brad Hallman. There goes Chad. You wave and stuff, but you're all worried about your own thing.
Yep.
There is no time with no hidden agendas, completely relaxed, not worried about, where you can get together and celebrate fishing and friendship and being together and hanging out without a sense of tension about it, because you're all trying to figure out what's going to happen. How's it going to go? Where am I in the points? How is this going to work out? What's going to happen this year?
I do feel like, and that's why houses are big to me, and it's also why cooking in the houses are big to me, because I do feel like that is the one time that we at least sit down, break bread together, and there is that relaxation and trust between the guys that's sitting at that table. Do y'all not feel that way?
No, 100%.
Is that not like the one time during an event?
No, I
like,
agree. And we didn't do it all year, but you do something with your family where you sit down and you do a high, low, high.
Yeah.
And Brad, when we were kind of struggling as a group this year, we did it at Oneida.
We did.
And we did it at a couple of other events. We didn't do it at every event, but Brad sat down. He's like, hey, this is something I do with my family. This reminds me of home. Are you guys open to this? And you say, what do you say?
Everybody goes around the table and says a high of the day and their low of the day.
Yeah,
and we try to do 2 highs and 1 low.
And some of them are funny. Some of them are brutally honest.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are really bad. But that helped me the times that we did that.
Yeah. It helps everybody. It helps everybody understand where everybody else is, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's good stuff. All right. Here's what I think we're going to do. I'm going to let you go, John. I know you've got an NPFL event coming up next week in Florida.
Yep, Toho.
Fifth
Start
in
the
the
season and end the season at Toho.
5th in the Angler of the Year points over on the NPFL. That will be streamed live to wrap up their season over there.
The killer.
So if you would like to watch John Soukup fishing live again, head over to the NPFL to close out a crazy year for you. Like I said, I know you got a lot. Bradley and I, after every event, have kind of gotten together. We talk about what's going on, so we're going to put a bow on that. This is our ninth event. Kind of talking about what went on. Definitely wanted to bring you in, but a lot of congratulations, a lot of well wishes, and a lot of honesty, and that's really key here, regardless of good or bad. And I think that's a great picture behind the scenes. So thank you both, and thank you guys for taking time to listen to this and watch this. Much appreciated, John, and congratulations, dude.
Thank you.
I mean, dude, you're on the freaking Elite Series, man.
Yeah.
I remember we were fishing the Bass Nation.
I got the email yesterday, so I guess it's official.
Remember the first time we were in the Bass Nation? We were in the back of that weird creek on Keystone, and I didn't really know you, and you didn't really know me. Remember that narrow creek way in the very back of it? We were both there. That was the first time we ran into each other, and then we ran into each other again. I think on Fort Gibson, Conawa. Grant, like we kept running into each other, and you were like, dude, we must obviously fish the same. Maybe we should start working together a little bit. And you were incredibly good, and then all of a sudden you jumped early on the forward-facing sonar, and I remember that one time you called and said, I found him, but you can't catch him. And you're like, no, you physically, literally can't catch him because I have stuff that you
That wounded Matt's soul, by the way. He's still scarred from that conversation.
No, but then John, then he started the Bass Tank. I remember when you were sitting there thinking of names for it, for the business, and how much that has grown in such a short amount of time. So thanks for jumping on, John. Greatly appreciate it. Congratulations.
Congratulations,
appreciate
John.
All right, that was John Soukup, and we'll continue on for a minute or two. You got time?
Oh, yeah.
You got time? All right. Interesting comment here, and I want to get into this. Joseph Sharp said, Matt, how long is too long, meaning elites is the goal, obviously. How many years will you give it a shot before you hang up the elite chase? And listen, I've thought about this, and I've talked about this, but I struggle between, moving forward, because I started this in 2019, fishing seriously, right? I'd done the Bass Nation, but AFCO actually did the Bass Boot Camp where I fished the 2 divisions of the Toyotas. I fished the Opens in 15 just to see what it was like, because I wanted to be able to talk about it from the media side. I've got my butt kicked. And so I had a good year that year. I qualified for the FLW Tour. I almost won the Toyota Championship. Then I roll into the Opens the next year, top 20 at Louisville, and I'm on the Elite Series. I roll into Grand last year in the overall. I catch him there. I finished 6th overall. I'm less than 100 points out of the Elite Series. I'm going to keep trying as long as it's financially feasible for me, and it's pushing me to the absolute brink and limit this year by not cashing checks. But it would be different, in my opinion, if I was tanking. Out of the last 23 Opens, I finished in the top half 21 times. I finished 121st in one event this year, and that was, right at 50%. But once I don't see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't think that it 100% is going to happen and that I have the ability to do it, and you shouldn't be out there if you don't think you have the ability to do it, fishing all of them. Yeah, you can if you think you can win one or something. That's when I'll hang it up. But until then, my goal is to make the Elite Series and be an Elite Series angler and have the best podcast out there. That's what I want to do.
I think you can do it. I think you could do it next year. I mean, 2 years ago, you finished 6th in the overall. Is that correct?
Yeah.
6th. And they didn't work down the list back then. They went down the divisionals, so it was different than this year. You would have qualified right there. So I absolutely have faith. I know you can do it.
I mean, it'd be different if it was 150th to 200th every tournament.
I know that there are people out there that do not really realize how tough this uphill battle is. I had a conversation with, I'll throw him under the bus, John Beckwith, Falcons, John Beckwith, and he was congratulating me, and he was being honest. John's an older gentleman, for you people that don't know him, but John was like, I got to tell you, there were moments through the last few years where I would just shake my head. And he said, dude, you are the definition of true grit, because you would just get back up and get in the saddle like it never happened. But he said, honestly, I was kind of like your wife. I was shaking my head. And, you know, I know John realizes how tough it is, but also John's got a great relationship, obviously, with Jason Christie, and he just looks at that result and thinks that, you know, that 1%er mentality just shows up in, like, guys, but it's rare, and it's not me. It's hard for me to achieve that. But I did keep grinding and glad to be there. Dude, you can do the same thing.
No, and I believe in one of the things that I'm going to miss is I believe that rooming with you over the last 2 years, as someone that has been there for 20 years, and throw Andrew in there too. I mean, he's a hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's fishing the Bassmaster Classic. He's won a tour event.
Yep.
He's won a Toyota championship.
Yeah,
he's just kind of gotten the short end of the stick the last couple of years. And you know, he doesn't talk about how it goes down every single event, but I mean, he's had fish on to be right there as well.
100%.
But I think that it has shortened the learning curve tremendously. I also think because of covering the Elite Series and the FLW Tour and traveling with them, my learning curve was already cut a lot shorter, because a lot of the noise is in the traveling and in the arrangements and all that. But as far as on the water and trusting your gut and things like that, you've been incredibly helpful, because I've come to you a lot of the time and say, what do you think? And sometimes, you know, it's exactly the opposite of what I think. You're like, dude, you need to go for it. And then other times you're like, you need to stick with your strengths. But it's just interesting that your advice typically revolves around my wheelhouse.
Yes.
And staying with what your wheelhouse is, even though our wheelhouses are exact opposites.
I remember at Rayburn, just this last week, you were kind of questioning what you were doing in practice, and I was like, 100% you stay with what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
There was a 30-pound bag caught doing what you were doing.
Yeah. And at Hartwell, well, here's the exact opposite. At Hartwell, you know, like I said, we're trying to do, and I came to you in practice and I said, 100% I am doing what needs to be done to win the tournament. I am catching the fish to win the tournament, and here's how I'm doing it.
Yep.
And you said, that's cool, I'm not going to do that. I mean, exactly. That's like verbatim, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. You're talking about in practice?
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely did. I wanted to stay with my wheelhouse and allow you know.
Right.
Just the same as you wanted to stay with your
So,
wheelhouse.
ironically, that hard-headedness led to a 101st place finish for you there.
Yep.
But is the only reason you finished 16th at Sam Rayburn, because you kept that mentality. You were true to yourself, and you said, I'm going to do it power fishing in the grass shallow with a hybrid hunter, because that's what I came here to do, and I'm not going to go out and drop shot. I'm not going to chase them on the live
I did end up drop shotting at Hartwell. I would say the majority of the event, even on day 2. I had to put down my baits pretty quick. But, you know, even after it happened, if I would have stayed with what I was doing, we know that Cranford caught them the exact way I wanted to, which was a jerk bait. So who knows? But I stayed in that. But absolutely, you need to stay with what you're comfortable with and in your wheelhouse. 100%. Sometimes it doesn't work out, but, you know.
Numbers-wise, let's just go through the actual qualifiers then, and we'll wrap this thing up. Okay. We talked about going into the year. We were very adamant. If you look at the statistics, you're basically afforded 50 points in each division. You have to have basically 3 top 17 finishes to guarantee yourself in. You actually won with a fairly low total to win.
Yes,
in the Centrals, which surprised you.
Extremely low total. I don't know if it was because of the fisheries. I don't know if it's because people just didn't catch them that had been up in the points. I don't know the answer to that, but that was the lowest points in the Central Division, in any division of bass that we've seen in a while.
Yeah, it took a 17th place average, a 19th place average, and a 21st place average to finish in the top 3 in each division. Anglers in the Centrals, Bradley Hallman, Kyle Norsetter, who fished his way in on the final day, and Logan Latuso, who also fished his way in on the final day. First man out there. Unfortunately, James Niggemeyer. He'll be fine. He's kind of like you. He'll make whatever he wants to. In a couple years, he's just going to have to grind it out.
I know I visited with him and Nick LeBrun, and it was, there at the end of day 2. And we're all going through the same stuff.
Jimmy Washam, Nick LeBrun, James Niggemeyer, some talented guys there that didn't get in this year. In the Southern Open, Brian New actually won the points with 574, which means it went down to 4th in that division, which would be Bryant Smith, Coop Gallant. Very impressive there. Had him on the show before. We'll probably have him on again a lot. And then Joey Cifuentes, Cowboy hat on the Elite Series. He had 536 points, lowest total to make the Elites this year. But also, like I said, it went down to 4 with Brian New, number 1.
Super happy for Joey, too.
Brian New's good.
He's one of the 1%ers. I was thinking that when you said his name, I was like, yep, there's one that makes it look easy.
He can freak show him. He did it.
He can do it all. He can stay steady. He can freak show. He can do everything.
In the Northern Division, once again, second consecutive year that it took 549 points to qualify. Alex Weatherall won that with 572 points. Don't know anything about Alex. Koya Fujita, finesse expert. Talked about him on the show a little bit yesterday, but a Japanese angler that I think is going to take the Elite Series by storm when conditions are in his favor.
Very well. Very well will.
And then Keith Poche was a double qualifier. He finished 3rd in that division, 549 points. I did see him on day 2. Windy as heck out there. Going under the bridge on Raybird. Just it looks like the boat's about to capsize at any moment, and he just gives me the old hi and just keeps plugging.
Yeah.
And then in the Opens overall, this is where things got interesting. So Keith Poche double qualified. He won the points, averaged 33rd place finish through all 9 to win it.
Incredible season.
Coop Gallant.
Incredible season.
He won 1437. He finished. Cole Sands ends up in 3rd. He qualifies through the overall. David Gaston ends up in 4th. He qualifies through the overall. Kenta Kimura, Elite Series Pro, had an incredible year, too, on the Opens.
Incredible year.
He just fishes. He finished in 5th, so then that is basically considered a double qualifier, so it drops down to 6th, which would be John Soukup, with 1386. I believe that was a 46th place average through all 9 events. Did Logan Parks get in one of them? I thought maybe he did.
Soukup was the last on the overall.
Yeah, so I think just out is Logan Parks, Shane Lineberger. You ended up finishing 9th in the overall, and I ended up finishing 18th in the overall out of the 88 that originally started.
Count that overall again. Is Logan Parks in or out? Was he the first guy out?
I think so. I thought he was in for some reason.
I did too.
Here, we'll look this up real quick here.
For some reason, I know.
That's what I thought too. Hold on.
I feel bad because we were so back to back on the last ones. We didn't get to come in and do the Hartwell.
No, Cole Sands is in. Logan Parks is not.
Cole Sands and
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay.
3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. Weatherall, Sheeta, Boucher, Sands.
It's
Smith,
rough being
Gallant,
the first guy out, man.
Yeah.
Rough.
Yep. So, what else you got?
We didn't get to do the Hartwell. We didn't get to do the replay because we were on the road 24/7. And you and I tried to get in here. We tried to schedule it, and then it didn't work out. So, dude, it was a top 10 for you.
It was.
I feel like you got robbed from your.
It's all good. Hopefully a lot of people got to watch it. My goal was to get on the FS1 for at least one of the shows, and that happened.
Yeah.
Went in with a legit chance to win less than 3 pounds out of second, and I knew the largemouth probably wouldn't last all 3 days, which they didn't. I was just able to fish my strengths. Like I said, I went right back and I locked a drop shot in my hand and had a topwater on the front deck in case it came out, and just grinded, fished 100 spots a day. Really liked that lake. I've always liked that lake. And just caught them all running spots and dropping a drop shot on spotted bass and casting to them. I mean, it's really that simple. There's not a lot of. I mean, it was a pretty intricate pattern because you had to. I was looking for roaming fish that were up on Hartwell, that were chasing bait, that were groups of bigger fish that weren't related to the cane, that were related to the cane, brush, and timber drops, but weren't on them because the pressure had pushed them off.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fish that were there, that lived there, the resident fish, were getting pressured, so they were spread out and they weren't willing to bite.
Yep.
So I was running 100 spots that looked all the same every day, and I was looking for fresh groups of fish that hadn't been pressured. You could tell they'd roam in 3 or 4 and 18 to 25 foot, and you just have to put it on 30 groups, and they would either disperse, they'd go down and look at it, and the fresh ones that had just moved up that were feeding on those little shad would go donk, and you reel into them, and that was it.
It's a great showing. What stuck out to me for you at that event was your confidence coming in was higher than anything I've seen in 2 years, and your confidence throughout the practice and event stayed and never wavered. I know you got it figured out. I know that you had a lot of things where you had past experiences there where you felt like you were confident. I don't know that you realize the confidence itself is so powerful, so powerful, so powerful. There's as much power in that as there is power in actually knowing some of the things that you know on how to catch those fish. Just the belief.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It was a phenomenal finish.
Well,
I know you kicked all of our butts.
I mean, I look back at, and I don't know why. So I grew up in Central Illinois, black and blue jig, square bill, that's it. I come to Oklahoma, not exactly the finesse capital of the world.
No.
Doesn't really have an incredible population of spotted bass that play in tournaments.
Right.
And I look back at, my 4 kind of major AAA tournaments, a Toyota Championship, I weighed in a 3.5, 4 pound spot, and a smallmouth, largemouth mix. Neely Henry, where I finished 11th in the Open in 2020, largemouth spotted bass mix.
Yeah.
Lake Norman, where I had a top 25 finish there, largemouth, smallmouth mix on that fishery, targeted the spots. Lake Hartwell here, largemouth, smallmouth mix, targeted the spots. I even weighed in a spot on Rayburn, but there's something about that later in the year finesse bite move, and I honestly think it was because for 10 or 15 years I was covering the Bassmaster Elite Series in the FLW Tour. Well, their seasons are March through August, March through September. So my time to fish then would be September, October, November, and December, when most people are in the deer stands, when the fishing is at the toughest. So I learned kind of how to target those, and then you obviously like the spots with the way I like to finesse fish. And throw in table rock. I mean, good finishes on table rock there are all mixed bags. So mixed bag fisheries, for some reason, I get and understand. And I mean, I've basically spotted bass fished at this tournament at Rayburn.
Right, you did. Yeah, same type of pattern, but they just are largemouth that relate the same. Dude, you got it in you. Part of me, we're super excited to have qualified for the elites, but there's a sad part to it too, with you and Andrew and not being there and in the house and like leaving and being, the separation of that part is it's real too. That's feelings that I had, the other night when we'd all went to dinner and stuff, and there's some of that involved in the feelings of qualifying as well. So yeah, I mean, I'm in the process of working on getting things together. Those deposits are due in a couple weeks, and I'm already stressed out about it there. But I think I also learned a lot mentally going into next year. And who knows? Like I said, the Opens are such a weird deal. You could roll into the first one and finish 120th, and you're so far behind the 8 ball. Yep. Or you can roll into the first one and finish 10th, and you're way ahead of the game. Yeah. And next year is going to be a completely different animal. I don't think it's any secret that there's going to probably be a number of professional anglers from the MLF Invitationals and potentially the Bass Pro Tour that are going to kind of come over and dabble in the Opens. There's not a conflict of schedules until kind of midway through the year, and I think those guys then who are having a bad Opens year will stay with either the Invitationals or the BPT. Yep. But you're going to have some animals, dude. You're going to have some guys. You're going to have some guys like the Jacob Perazzics and the Christies and the Hackneys that have come over. You got some 1%ers coming. That's some 1%ers coming. But if you want to do this and you want this, you're going to have to fish against the 1%ers all the time. 100%. And I have a 1-up because I just spent 24 tournaments out of the last 3 years grinding in 200-plus boat tournaments
in the opens, and those guys haven't been doing that.
Yeah.
They haven't had the co-anglers. They haven't had the grind on that. So I'm going to have to use that to my advantage with the mentality and no, I don't care who the name is. I just have to go out, catch my weight, do what I do, and apply my game plan.
Let me tell you, I don't care how big of a game changer you are. If you spent 4, 5, 6 years away from tournaments of having co-anglers in the back of your boat, it's an adjustment. And sometimes it's at the wrong time that you realize that, hey, I'm not that good at this anymore.
Listen, I want to say something about the co-anglers. You always talk about, and you talk about how there's good, but then there's also bad. I have had probably the greatest string of co-anglers this year. And it's been throughout the entire season, whether it's guys who are rooting for me, but I've gotten this weird mixture of co-anglers who get it.
Yeah, I have
incredibly talented.
I have to.
Cash checks easily, stay out of the way, genuinely root for you. And bizarrely, out of the 9 tournaments, I think in 6 of them, I had co-anglers that finished in the top 10, whether it was day 1 or day 2 with me. And I had 3 leaders after the day of co-anglers who had the heaviest bag of the 180 to 225 boat tournament came out of the back of my boat, which at first I looked at that as a problem because I'm leaving a lot of fish on the table, obviously. But then I looked at how those co-anglers caught them, and none of them, I wouldn't have caught any of those fish this year at all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were fish that...
They teach you what you're missing.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and that's a great lesson to learn. It is.
So.
Dude, I'm all for them, too. I mean, if you remember back to the very first tournament of the year, day 2, I draw the tournament leader co-angler. And I said, he was from there. I said, dude, you got some digits you want to fish? Because he wanted to fish offshore grass, and that's not what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I will give you the first 3 hours of the day. You bring 3 or 4 places you want to hit, we'll go hit them. And he won the tournament. And I gave him that opportunity, and he freaking opened it wide open. He had already done most of the work the day before. But I only had one bad all year long. But one bad can just leave that taste in your mouth, you know. That one out of – listen, they have to put up with more than one bad. If you're a co-angler and you're fishing all 9 opens, you probably put up with more than one bad boater. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
Here's something that I'm throwing around, and this is kind of a discussion piece. When you were on the Elite Series the first time, you ran the Bass Zone wrap and all Mark Jeffrey'd out.
Jeffrey's
you had
out,
there's a jersey right there for the Bass Zone.
Yeah.
And over the last couple of years, I feel like a lot of the BTL listeners have kind of followed your career through your YouTube, through the updates, through our show deals. And what I'm trying to figure out is a way, because every inch of jersey is valuable. That's your real estate. There is nothing on there that does not benefit you. You get a very limited amount of fabric for a lot of different things. I remember a couple years ago, KVD did a deal where he had like his whole wrap was like fans that had sent in pictures, and then they turned it into this weird thing. So here's what I'm trying to spitball away, and I don't know how to do it, is to get a very small BTL logo on your jersey, and then listeners send in pictures, and then we tint it green. And then all those listeners who have been with you for your journey on BTL and through this for the last 3 years of your opens, there's a little centimeter picture of them that ends up in a BTL. And I don't know whether it'd be like on a deal where you send your picture in for $25 and it gets it. So then when it all combines, I don't know how. But I'd love to be able to figure out some way that the listeners could be a part. Maybe it's just something on your truck.
Yeah.
A BTL sticker on your truck.
The boat's fine.
Or a BTL sticker on your boat.
Yeah.
A BTL sticker on your boat. With fans that put it in, and then we have a graphics designer put the little pictures of all the BTL fans that send their pictures in. That's there, cool. And then when they see your boat, they know that their picture is somewhere on your boat. Doesn't even have to be on the jersey. You cool with the little on the boat?
Yeah.
And we'll figure out a
absolutely
way to do it. I'm talking about like just...
I know what you're talking about.
Like that size.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
I mean, you can put, 60, 75 guys on there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a cool idea.
I know when Kevin did it, it was cool because I remember people would come by and be like, hey, there's my picture on Kevin Van Dam's boat.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a really cool idea. Really cool idea. I don't remember Van Dam doing that. I guess that's part of you working the media all the time, in the know, 24/7.
Yep. All right. Thank you for the honesty. Thank you for the time throughout the entire year, the highs, the lows. It'll all be out on your YouTube channel within the coming weeks. Bradley Hallman Fishing on YouTube. And then I'm assuming whenever you have any major announcements or anything that's coming down the pipe, like, I mean, I got to be your first call now because now you're Elite Series Pro. I kind of need the scoop on that coming down. So I expect those calls, Bradley,
the insiders.
as you
hey,
sign.
I have a question.
Yes.
People keep saying, sorry, we're going to miss you next year on the Pick'em, Andrews Pick'em. Is there some rule that says that I can't pick anglers because I'm on the Elite Series?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you could be on the show live because we give up so much information.
It's public.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's cross that bridge when
we're going to have to call Chris Bowes on that one.
Cross that bridge.
That would be cool, wouldn't it?
It would.
Have an Elite Series angler on. I'm terrible at it. I'm the worst on the show.
Well, no, I've just gone downhill over the last 2 years.
Todd, you guys don't realize how much Todd has gotten in Matt's head about this thing. I mean, he just tortures Matt about it every time he sees him. The first conversation out of his mouth to Matt is that Pick'em show.
Well, this is what got in my head at Rayburn on day. So he's there, and we're just hanging out in practice, and I'm like, I've got 5 spinning rods rigged, and he's like, you'll never catch them like that. Nope, never been done. Never been done in the history of Rayburn. Not on the drop shot. Not going to happen. You know what's going to happen? Here's what's going to happen. You're going to hook it, and you're going to lose it. It's like 1 in 10. I'm like, whatever. So I go out and I tell my co-angler before I pick up the drop shot. I've got it like heavy, right? 14-pound test, 7.4 medium heavy. I went with a bigger hook. I showed you the hook that I made.
The Rayburn drop shot.
The Rayburn drop shot. And the first day, like, I've got 4 good ones, and I go to my very first pile at like 11, and I pitch in there numerous times. Catch a 13-incher, so it's not like the first pitch. So now I'm to the finesse portion of the brush pile. And I hook a Kong. I hook a big one.
A Kong.
And I get it stuck in the brush pile in 25 foot. And I'm telling my co-angler, he's like, oh, well, it looks like a big fish. And I'm like, it's a monster. And I'm calm. And then all of a sudden, it's just dead weight, and I don't feel anything. And I'm like, oh, he's pinned in the brush. And then I realize, no, he's out of the brush. That's just the fish. That's straight weight.
Oh.
And so I troll him out, and I look her. I know there's nothing else there. He's in 30 foot of water. She is in 30 foot of water away from the brush. Like, I got her. And she comes up and jumps. I've weighed in a 9.4 in the club days. It's on replicas on my wall, right?
Yep.
And I've weighed in numerous 8s. This was the biggest fish I've ever hooked in a tournament.
Wow.
You know, a lot of those big-headed 7-pounders, big giant head, looks like a 12-pounder, body 6.5.
Yeah.
This was a small-headed, bug-eyed, pot-bellied fish.
Bug-eyed.
And it was a monster.
That's incredible.
My co-angler goes, oh, my word. He said, that's the biggest fish I've seeded Rayburn in 5 years. And so now I've got it out of the brush. I bought the drop shot. I'm fighting it. I've made it through the jump, and I'm like, it's mine. So he goes, what do you want me to do? This is where good co-angler.
Are you thinking, Castledine, I'm about to show you
I'm not thinking it. I'm saying it.
Are you really?
I'm saying I'm naming this sucker Todd on stage. I'm saying, let me show everybody old Todd that came on the drop shot. I don't care that I'm giving it away. Co-angler goes, what do you want me to do? I said, clear all the rods off this side. He takes my rods, clears it. I mean, because there's I can't reel it in, right? I'm just going to tire it out. He moves his rods. He rolls his sleeves up. I said, when it comes by, I said, I'm going to have you grab, because he knows what he's doing. I said, grab it with 2 hands like a 5-gallon bucket and just boat flop it. And he goes, okay. And it's not really going nuts. It's just, it knows it's hooked. Only thing that worries me is when it jumped with its mouth closed. It did one of those whale jumps.
Mm-hmm.
Wah, boo. It wasn't a wah, 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 wah.
Right.
Like the wah, 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 wah is when you see the hooks in there and you know you've got them and they know they're hooked. Mouth closed.
So what's the whale jump?
It's just where they come out and they go, wah, boom, down in the water. There's no shaking of the fish. The fish shoots out of the water on a 45-degree angle, is completely out of the water, and then crashes down.
Okay.
There's none of the open. The Bassmaster logo is the other type of jump.
Gotcha.
Whale jump versus it was not a Bassmaster logo jump. It was a whale jump. And I've got it, and I probably had it on for 45 seconds now, out of the brush, through the jump. I'm like,
mine.
Dude, I'm already doing the math.
I've got
20 pounds now.
Yeah.
And it's like 11. And it just pulls off.
That sounds just like my story. Identical to my story
Like
at
for
Hartwell.
no reason whatsoever.
That's exactly what happened.
Not on the jump, not on a run,
Same
not on
thing.
a head shake. It's just, I mean, and I'm not babying it because I learned on Hartwell. I had a conversation with Miles Berghoff. He said, hey, I listened to the show that you did I talked about it with Castledon. I've talked about it with you about losing fish. He goes, you need to go and jack them in practice. He goes, find some fish that aren't what you're going to catch in practice. He goes, and just lean on them. He said, get as much confidence as you can. Use the exact hook, rod, reel, bait, everything. And I did it. And I was jacking them on 9-pound tests, boat flipping 2.5-pound spots, got the confidence, top 10'd it. So I did the same thing, right? And I got it. I've got it. And it just pulled off, and my conger goes, oh, no. And I said, well, maybe the worm, maybe if this mouth shut. Worm's disintegrated and gone, so that wasn't an issue. Hook's super sharp. Nothing's wrong with it. Not opened up. Perfect. Only thing I can think of is when that fish jumped with its mouth shut, those big fish, hard lips, hard mouths, they grab onto baits a lot, and I either had him hooked funny or he was just grabbing onto that thing and just had the hook point in, and when he went down, he finally opened his mouth and did a head shake thing, and that hook point pulled out.
Yep.
I never actually was able to penetrate it because he was clamped down on it that whole time he had his mouth shut.
May very well be. May very well be. It is the exact same scenario that I lost my best fish at Hartwell with. And same thing. I'm like you. Jump twice, come down, big one. I'm like already doing the math in my head. Drop shot fish don't generally come off like that, like on the steady pull after you've had them on that long. It's a heartbreaker.
No, that's when you've got them.
That's when you got them. I know. That's why I was doing the math as well. I don't know, man. Like I said.
I'm not complaining. I mean, I did nothing wrong. It impacted the rest of my day, but it would have been different if I had tried to horse them or broken them off or I did nothing wrong. It just came out.
I would just like to have seen Todd on stage. The fish Todd. That would have been cool.
But here's the deal. We talked about the co-angler stuff. I started on his fish the first morning.
Yeah, you did.
He said, I got a morning bite. I said, I don't. We rolled there. I caught a couple threes out of there.
Yep.
And then, that one lost. And he said, dude, I've been in a lot of boats. I've never felt sick to my stomach when a guy loses one. I feel sick to my stomach now. I said, dang. So then we rolled to the very next pile, and he catches a 5 out of it.
Wow.
He ended up winning the Angler of the Year in the Centrals. Good dude. Good dude. All right, Brad, you got anything else?
I am done. Done.
Let's cue the outro music. Tomorrow, can't really announce who the guest is yet. Most likely today or early tomorrow, you will understand why. But it is a pretty significant announcement in the world of professional bass fishing.
I have a suggestion, too, after we get off air. Someone who I visited with last night that would like to comment on the new announcement that is coming if it drops.
Okay. We can do that. Really good listener-viewer interaction on today's show. A lot of people on to wish Bradley and John congratulations. So,
yeah. And thank you, everybody, for following along, all the support, all the BTL listeners, dude. I am super, super, super appreciative, just as mad as we both are, of you guys and all the support that you give us. It's been incredible.
You called it. 2-hour show.
Yep. Figured it was going to be a long one.
All right. We'll see you guys on Wednesday. We're out.